You're now watching Q News. Here are the top stories for this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a stern warning to Gaza's residents, threatening consequences if Israeli detainees, whether alive or dead, are not released. Posting on his social media platform Truth Social, Trump stated that Gaza has a bright future, but only if Hamas releases the detainees. He warned that if they don't, they are dead. Trump urged Hamas leaders to make the smart choice and release the detainees immediately, warning that there will be hell to pay if they refuse. At the same time, he called on Hamas leaders to leave Gaza immediately, referring to them as sick and twisted. The president also reaffirmed full U.S. support for Israel, stating that Washington is providing everything needed to finish the task. Stay with us for more updates on this developing story. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has expressed hope that Hamas would heed President Donald Trump's demands. Rubio emphasized that Trump's patience had run out and that the detainees in Gaza must be released immediately. He urged Hamas to take Trump's warnings seriously, adding that the U.S. administration would not hesitate to take decisive action if a quick resolution wasn't reached. This followed Hamas' announcement of direct talks with U.S. envoy Adam Mueller regarding American detainees.
My words and they chose not to come. Much easier that way. In comparison, under Joe Biden.
Palestinian factions have condemned U.S. President Donald Trump's recent threats to Gaza residents. They stated that the threats demonstrate America's withdrawal from the agreement in which it was a mediator. The faction, in a statement, added that the threats also highlight the U.S. administration's determination to continue as a partner in the genocide against the Palestinians. Israel has raised concerns over secret U.S. negotiations with Hamas officials in Qatar, questioning their effectiveness. Under President Donald Trump, the U.S. is engaging in talks aimed at securing the release of American detainees in Gaza, including both living and deceased hostages. Officials say progress depends on whether Hamas demonstrates good faith in the negotiations. Meanwhile, U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff is expected to return to the region to discuss the next phase of the Gaza ceasefire. The UN Security Council has held a closed session on the Middle East from Sigrid Kaj, the UN's Gaza Reconstruction and Humanitarian Coordinator. Kaj highlighted Israel's suspension of humanitarian aid, while Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for adherence to ceasefire and urged member states to support it. The 5 European members reiterated Guterres' call to allow aid into Gaza to meet its international obligations under humanitarian law. UN Office for the Coordination of the Humanitarian Affairs has warned that funding for humanitarian efforts in the occupied Palestinian territories is severely lacking, with only 4% of the required amount secured. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric emphasized Gaza's dire needs, exacerbated by the closure of crossing points and the resulting threats to food security. Schools also face challenges reopening with a lack of supplies and inadequate educational activities. Ukraine and the United States are in discussions on steps towards peace. Head of the Ukrainian President's Office, Andriy Yermak, announced on social media that he had a phone conversation with U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz to discuss efforts towards a just and lasting peace. The call followed a statement from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in which he said Ukraine is ready to engage in negotiations as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Yermak further that both sides also exchanged views on security issues and coordination within the of Ukrainian and US teams are set to meet soon to continue these discussions. Meanwhile, Waltz stated that the US is actively working to advance negotiations, including talks on a minerals agreement and a potential peace deal with Russia. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced plans to host a meeting of all European army chiefs in Paris next week, emphasizing the need for Europe to prepare for a future where the United States may not be by its side. In a televised address, Macron stated that he would like to believe that the United States will stay with France, but they must be ready if that is not the case. Meanwhile, France and Britain are working to finalize a peace plan for Ukraine, which could be presented to the US within days. Diplomats say the plan also aimed to strengthen ties between Washington and Kiev ahead of potential talks in the US. Macron also pledged to boost France's investments without raising taxes and proposal opening a debate on expanding France's nuclear protection to European partners. Thousands gathered outside Greece's parliament as lawmakers debated a sense of motion against the government over the country's deadliest train disaster. Demonstrators, including students, families and workers, held a moment of silence before releasing lanterns into the sky in memory of the 57 victims. On the pavement, candles were arranged to form the number 57, symbolizing those lost in the tragedy. The center-left PASOK party, along with other opposition groups, submitted the censure motion against Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis' government, accusing it of dodging responsibility, failing to address critical safety issues, and covering up evidence. Last week, hundreds of thousands took to the street on the second anniversary of the rail disaster, demanding justice for the victims. This concludes our top stories for this hour. Many thanks for watching and goodbye.